Kicking off our coverage tonight, Marc Lotter and Chris Hahn, former senior aide to Senator Chuck Schumer and host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast. Both of you gentlemen, I think, are locked and loaded, right? It's been such a busy news day. So, Chris, I want to start with you because, well, the optics aren't great, right? And I feel like you're ready. You're chomping at the bit at this one.
So here's the thing. This is going to be a close election. Veterans tend to support Donald Trump. If he loses 2 to 5% of veterans by his actions towards veterans, like taking pictures at cemeteries, like saying that the Medal of Honor is not the greatest thing. In fact, I'll give my donor a medal that's better. If he loses some of them, it could cost him a state. And he keeps on doing it. And I think the media has a double standard. If a Democrat had done this, it'd be the only thing the media was talking about at all today. We wouldn't be talking about anything else. If Barack Obama had done this, if Kamala Harris had done this, it'd be the #1 story. They would be lining up veterans to talk about how bad it was. But again, it doesn't take all veterans to disappear from Trump's column. It only takes about 2 to 5% of them. And I think he's doing a great job of turning them off. He's probably going to lose about 15% from his prior support from veterans.
15, Mark, do you think he's going to lose 15%? I mean, seems pretty bulletproof to me.
Absolutely not. Look, the real controversy should be why wasn't Kamala Harris and Joe Biden honoring the 13 servicemen and women who died because of their botched handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal. And while Joe Biden was on the beach, and we have no idea what Kamala Harris was up to, probably trying to study for a 18-minute interview, Donald Trump was there laying a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns and visiting with families of people whose family members we'd lost in service. And so you can try to make this about something else, but one side was there. The other side was responsible for it. they can't even take ownership of it, let alone honor those who have fallen.
Mark,
you know,
this was Donald Trump's deal to withdraw from Afghanistan. It was his deal to withdraw from Afghanistan. Joe Biden greeted those caskets when they came back from Afghanistan, something that Donald Trump never did as president when bodies would come home. Donald Trump doesn't like to be around
another lie.
veterans.
How many lies are you going to talk about here?
He denigrates veterans at every turn. He calls them suckers and losers. And all it's going to take is 5% of them.
Debunked by liberals.
Oh, my God. It's over for him. And by the way, he's losing them. I'm talking
you should go to Comedy Central, buddy.
He's losing them every day, and you know it, Mark.
Okay, I'm going to shift us a little bit, although I do. I love it. I love the passions.
You're full of lies and funny stuff.
Okay, I want to talk about the two storylines that we're seeing from the campaigns, right? We see the vice president in the swing state of Georgia. We see them stumping very much, especially today and heading into September. So, Mark, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Wall Street Journal said there's been a reboot in the campaign and Donald Trump's campaign, that they're going to be focusing more on issues. They're going to be holding smaller events. Does that play with his campaign, or does he get the energy in these big, big rallies?
Well, I think it'll be a combination of both. I love this move because really this is going to be decided by policy. Enthusiasm, vibes, joy aren't going to lower anyone's gas and grocery bills that were driven up by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It's not going to secure the border, which was opened up by Kamala Harris, the border czar, and Joe Biden. And it's not going to bring our world to peace, which is now spinning in chaos because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So keep focusing on policy. You'll still do a couple of 2, 3 big rallies per week, but these smaller events talking about policy, because people remember things were more affordable under Donald Trump, the border was more secure, and the world was safer under Donald Trump. Kamala Harris doesn't even know what her policy is.
You know, Chris, I think you need to react to that.
Yeah, the border was, there was a lot less traffic in the border in 2020 because it was the worst year in the history of this country. People weren't coming here because they were stuck in their houses and gas prices were low.
You've had more people in one year than they had in all 4 under Trump.
Donald Trump failed to protect us from COVID, and he allowed the economy to crumble. And that's why things were cheap, because nobody had any money.
More people died under Joe Biden
became president and reopened up. When Joe Biden became president and reopened the economy, prices spiked and people had jobs. And now inflation has come down. So you're going to need another storyline.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.